used to have these strange dreams that I never paid much attention to. They seemed random, meaningless, and I would forget them almost as soon as I woke up. But over time, something started to change. I began to remember entering and exiting these dreams as if I were passing through some kind of portal. It wasn't just a simple transition. I was surrounded by intricate lines and geometric patterns. The more I saw them, the more they reminded me of sacred geometry. At first, it was just a fleeting thought, an oddity I noticed and quickly dismissed. But the patterns kept recurring, each time more vivid and complex. They weren't just random shapes, they felt intentional, as if they were trying to convey something I couldn't quite grasp. The realization struck me suddenly, like a bolt of lightning. Maybe these dreams weren't just the brain's way of entertaining itself during sleep. Maybe they were glimpses into another reality, a reality even more real than the one we know. This idea consumed me. I couldn't shake it off. Every night I went to bed with a mix of excitement and dread, wondering where the next dream would take me. I began trying to control my dreams, focusing on remembering the patterns, the people, the places. I kept a notebook by my bed, frantically scribbling down every detail the moment I woke up, though more often than not, the memories slipped away like sand through my fingers. But one dream in particular stood out. I lived an entire lifetime within it, from birth to my final breath. I had a family, children, everything. I watched them grow, saw myself age, felt the full weight of years pass by. It was so vivid, so beautiful, that when I woke up, it felt more like I had left my real life behind and returned to a lesser one. The grief I felt at losing that life was overwhelming, like I had been ripped from the arms of loved ones I would never see again. Now I'm starting to wonder if the reality we live in is the illusion, and that the worlds we visit in our dreams are the true reality. What if we're not actually here at all, but only imagining this life while our real selves dwell in those dreamscapes? The thought terrified me, but it also fascinated me. I couldn't stop myself from diving deeper. As I delved deeper into my dreams, I began to experiment with lucid dreaming techniques. I researched everything I could find, from ancient practices to modern neuroscience. At first it was just a way to test my theory, but soon it became an obsession. I'd spend hours before bed, focusing my mind, trying to control the entry into those dream portals, mapping out the geometric patterns that seemed to guide me. The more I practiced, the more vivid and structured these dreams became, as if I was slowly tuning into a frequency I wasn't supposed to access. The dreams began to change. The once simple and abstract patterns became increasingly complex, evolving into elaborate structures that seemed to pulse with energy. They were no longer just lines and shapes. They felt like living entities, almost sentient, as if they were observing me as much as I was observing them. The portal that I usually passed through felt different, almost alive. The patterns shifted faster than usual, and as I stepped through, I felt a sharp tug, as if something was pulling me deeper. On the other side, the world was eerily similar to the one I had just left. But there were subtle differences. The colors were more intense, the air had a density to it, and the people, they felt more real, as if they were aware of my presence in ways that my waking world counterparts were not. It was in this world that I began to encounter what I could only describe as echoes of my own life, distorted reflections of the people and places I knew, but twisted, altered in ways that defied explanation. My childhood home, for instance, appeared, but it was different. The architecture was wrong, the rooms arranged in impossible ways, like an Escher drawing brought to life. The people I met there, people I should have known, didn't recognize me. They called me by a different name, spoke of things I had never done, places I had never been, but somehow, deep down, it all felt familiar, like a distant memory. As I explored this world, I began to meet people who claimed to know me, not as the person I was in the waking world, but as someone else entirely. They spoke in hushed tones of events I couldn't recall, using words and phrases that felt alien, yet disturbingly familiar. They referred to places that didn't exist in my reality, but when I heard their descriptions, I could picture them perfectly in my mind. It was as if I were tapping into memories that weren't my own, or perhaps memories of another version of myself, living a life parallel to my own. Then came the nights when I couldn't wake up. I tried to force myself out of the dream, but nothing worked. The harder I tried, the more the dream seemed to tighten its grip on me, like quicksand pulling me under. Panic set in as I realized I might be stuck here, in this alternate reality that felt increasingly like home. Each time I woke up, I felt disoriented, unsure if I had truly returned to my own world or merely transitioned to another layer of the dream. The lines between dream and reality were blurring, and I began to lose track of which was which. During one of these trapped nights, I met a man who introduced himself as a traveler. He claimed he had once been like me, someone who stumbled upon the truth of dreams. But unlike me, he had found a way to move between realities at will. He warned me that the dream world was not just another reality, but a web of interconnected dimensions, each more complex and dangerous than the last. He said that every time I entered, I risked losing more of myself to it. His words were laced with a sadness, a weariness that suggested he had been traveling for far too long. The traveler explained that the geometric patterns I had been seeing were not just visual phenomena, they were doorways, portals that connected different dimensions of consciousness. Each pattern represented a different frequency, a different layer of reality. By focusing on these patterns, I had inadvertently attuned myself to these frequencies, allowing me to access worlds that were not meant to be seen by ordinary minds. He showed me how to manipulate the patterns, how to move through them without being consumed by the overwhelming vastness of the multiverse. But it was too late to turn back. The line between dream and reality was already blurring. I began to notice small inconsistencies in my waking life, objects that seemed out of place, conversations I didn't remember having, people who recognized me but whom I couldn't recall. It was as if my consciousness was shifting between realities without my control, leaving fragments of myself scattered across different worlds. I would see someone on the street who looked familiar, only to realize they were a person I had met in a dream. I began to lose time, hours or even days vanishing without explanation, as if I were slipping in and out of different realities without even realizing it. The traveler offered to teach me how to navigate these dimensions, how to protect myself from being consumed by them. But the more I learned, the more I realized the truth. These weren't just dreams or alternate realities. They were layers of a vast, incomprehensible consciousness, something ancient and powerful, a mind beyond minds that we, as humans, could barely comprehend. And I had unknowingly become a part of it. This consciousness was not benevolent nor malevolent, it simply was. A force of nature, indifferent to the lives it touched, much like the ocean is indifferent to the fish that swim in it. As I delved deeper into the dream world, I began to encounter entities that defied description. They were not human, nor were they like any creature I had ever seen. They were manifestations of pure thought, beings of light and shadow that existed beyond the confines of physical form. They communicated with me not through words, but through emotions, impressions that washed over me like waves. Some were curious, others indifferent, and a few were malevolent, their presence dark and suffocating, filling me with a dread I couldn't escape. Each night I ventured deeper, uncovering secrets and truths that were both terrifying and exhilarating. I began to understand that the dreams were not random. They were a form of communication, a way for this cosmic consciousness to interact with me, to guide me, or perhaps to use me. The traveler warned me that these entities, these beings that inhabited the dream world, had their own agendas, their own desires. Some sought to help, others to harm, but all were far beyond my understanding. Now I'm no longer sure who I am. Am I the person who sleeps and dreams, or the one who dreams and awakens? My life has become a maze of realities, each one more real than the last, and I can't find the exit. Maybe there isn't one. Maybe the dreams have consumed me entirely, and what I once called reality is just another layer of the dream. I've lost track of how many layers there are, how many realities I've passed through. I no longer know which version of me is the original, or if there even is an original, or perhaps I was never awake to begin with. Perhaps this life, this reality, is just another dream, one that I have yet to wake from. But if that's true, then what happens when I do? Will I find myself in yet another layer, another version of reality? Or will I finally reach the end of this endless journey? As I sit here, I can feel the lines and patterns beginning to form around me again, pulling me back into the dream world. The distinction between my waking life and the dreamscape has all but vanished. I no longer know where one ends and the other begins. All I know is that I am being drawn deeper, further into the labyrinth of consciousness that spans worlds, dimensions, and realities beyond counting. Maybe one day I'll find my way out, or maybe I'll keep drifting, lost in the infinite layers of dreams, forever searching for a reality that no longer exists. But until then, I'll keep exploring, keep pushing the boundaries of what I thought was possible, because now I'm no longer afraid. The dreams have shown me that reality is much bigger, much stranger than I ever imagined.